In a game yesterday against the Toronto Raptors with 4 minutes and 26 seconds left in the first quarter, the Milwaukee Bucks held a 21-18 lead over the Toronto Raptors, and it was looking like they were going to have a game that would set them back on pace to get back to where they want to be in the standings. Bryn Forbes hit 3 big threes early in the game. Giannis was getting it done from the field as well as getting to the rim, and the Toronto Raptors just couldn't really seem to stop anybody on the Milwaukee Bucks from scoring. However, from that point on, the Milwaukee Bucks were outscored 39-20 in the remainder of the first half. Giannis would go on to only make 4 more points through the rest of the half. And the Milwaukee Bucks, just as a whole on the offensive end, not only just looked discombobulated, but they looked like a team that just didn't have an offensive plan going into the game. And unfortunately, that's been the issue for the Milwaukee Bucks, it seems, for not only this season, but going back to since Mike Budenholzer was the head coach of this franchise. Since Mike Budenholzer has taken over as the head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks, nobody in the Eastern Conference has won more games or finished in first place in the conference more than the Milwaukee Bucks. However, at the same time, no team in the Eastern Conference or in the NBA has had more questions about their star player and whether or not he can get it done in the playoffs than the Milwaukee Bucks have with Giannis Antetokounmpo. To fail to score 100 points in today's NBA is just blasphemous. Every single team is scoring upwards of 110 to 120 points on any given night. And to not even crack the 100 mark when you have somebody like Giannis Antetokounmpo and when you have Bryn Forbes hitting 3 threes in the first quarter, which is basically a perfect rendition of what your offense should look like with what they're actually doing with Giannis right now. Yesterday's offense early in the game was basically perfect for what they do. Giannis gets the ball at the top of the key. He drives, tries to find an open guy. The open guy tries to kick it to another open guy. Maybe it gets back to Giannis. That's basically the offense of this team. And, you know, for what it's worth, it's led them, like I said, to have the most wins in the Eastern Conference over the past 3 years. But at the same time, like I said, no other team has more questions about their playoff success or about their regular season success amongst their star player like Milwaukee has had over these past 3 years. Now, I don't know if firing Mike Budenholzer is the best option for the Milwaukee Bucks. Coach Bud is one of the best coaches in the NBA since he was an assistant with, Greg Popovich in San Antonio. So I don't know if that's the best option. However, at the same time, I feel like if Giannis were to go to ownership and say it's not working out between him and Coach Budenholzer, or, if the ownership just feels that way on their own, this ownership group has went to Giannis and told him that they are committed to getting him a championship and bringing a championship to Milwaukee. And some of the moves that they've made, it seems like they're actually keeping up their end of the bargain with moves like Drew Holiday and Dante DiVincenzo that they drafted a couple years ago and Bobby Portis. And, the emergence of some of these guys, it's coming at a good time for Giannis because he's probably at his peak. He's getting a lot of other guys who are probably playing at their best capabilities. And they're still not, the consensus number 1 team in the league or even the Eastern Conference. And I think just off that alone, the questions as to whether or not Mike Budenholzer should be fired are, implemented into everybody's mind. One team who it's no question as to whether or not their coach should stay is the Miami Heat. There is possibly no, foreseeable future in which the Miami Heat don't have Eric Spoelstra as their head coach with everything that he's brought them, in terms of championships, in terms of a winning mentality. There's no way that Eric Spoelstra gets fired this year, next year, or anytime soon. However, what has happened to this team this season is possibly one of the more confusing and disappointing things I think I've seen in the NBA in a long time. The Miami Heat are 6-10 in their last 16 games, and while you might say that's because Jimmy Butler has been gone for all of those games, he hasn't. He's been there for 11 games, and even in the 11 games that he's there, they're only 6-5. Their wins are against two wins against New York, a win against the worst team in the league in Washington, 2 wins against possibly the most disappointing team in the league in the Sacramento Kings, and another win against the Houston Rockets, who just got done trading their best player in 25 years. Comparing this team to where they were last year at this point, they're kind of in the same, the same spot. They're going to be towards the bottom of the conference until they shoot up to the midpoint. But, they did nothing roster-wise to put them over the top of the other teams. They should have really expected the Boston Celtics were going to get better with all their young talent. The Raptors, even though they took a bit of a step off this year, are still going to be one of the more competitive and, up-to-play teams in the NBA. The Milwaukee Bucks still have Giannis. The Indiana Pacers, even though they traded Victor Oladipo, they got somebody back in Karis LeVert, who, even though he hasn't stepped on the court, once he steps on the court with MVP candidate Domantas Sabonis and Defensive Player of the Year candidate Miles Turner, that team is going to be deadly. Everybody in the East kind of made a move to try to put themselves over the top, except for the Boston Celtics, who just kind of relied on their talent and potential to get better to make them better. And they did get better with their talent and potential. The Miami Heat really didn't do that. They relied on Tyler Hero, I guess, and Bam Adebayo, but that's not enough. I don't know if it was enough for this Miami Heat team. And if Jimmy Butler is not going to shoot threes and be a player who can at least hurt the defense with his three-point shooting and just consistently shoot 40% from the field and just hit mid-range shot after mid-range shot, cool. He gets 20 to 25 points a game just off that alone. But at the same time, he also has a lot of games where he gets 14 points, 17 points, 13 points. And it's not enough for a team where they're going against really good Eastern Conference teams. They're going against a lot of decent Eastern Conference teams. And when they go against the West, it's not even a chance for them. Speaking of the Western Conference, the only team to play last night from the West was the Los Angeles Lakers. They ended up taking an 11-point loss to the Brooklyn Nets. This was a really good win for the Nets team. This was a loss that really means nothing for the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James was in the starting lineup surrounded by guys like Wesley Matthews, KCP, Marc Gasol, and Kyle Kuzma. 4 guys who really should be relegated to bench roles at this point in their careers. And this team was just not. I mean, they were down Dennis Schroeder. They were down Anthony Davis. They were down really key guys from not only the starting lineup, but from, off the bench. They were relying on Talen Horton-Tucker to play 28 minutes last night. Caruso played 25 minutes. They just didn't have their normal lineup. So, like I said, this is a really good win for the Brooklyn Nets, who were playing without Kevin Durant again last night. James Harden and Kyrie Irving are kind of getting used to each other in terms of being the only 2 guys on the floor to be consistent scorers for the team. So, like I said, really good win for the Nets. A loss that really means nothing to the Los Angeles Lakers. With all that being said, that's going to be the video for me. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm going to try to do this new, different kind of style of video where I kind of just talk about what happened the previous day in the NBA. Maybe even try to give projections and predictions onto what's going to happen in today's games of the day. I guess that's kind of a confusing statement, but I think you know what I mean. So new style of video I'm going to try to, try out. If you like it, make sure you leave a like. If you didn't like it, make sure you leave a dislike. Any feedback from you all at this point is much appreciated. Any feedback that you guys have given me ever since I started doing this, I've appreciated. So even if I don't say anything back in the comments or anything like that, I just want it to be known that it's really appreciated. Yeah, if you're new here, make sure you hit subscribe. If you're one of my returning subscribers, I appreciate you a lot, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.